Okay, so first of all, a good tavach, and it's Maischus. You come to start the week with learning Bereshis Bara Elikim. One of the meanings is that the Torah starts with Bereshis to teach us that all in the beginnings are important. For example, Chazal tell us that you're not supposed to start the day like a goy. Lo teishiv al mita aramis. It's Gemara in Brachas. So one shot is be careful not to sit on a bed that a guy offers you unless you sit underneath it, because sometimes they put dead babies underneath their bed and then they accuse you of killing the baby. That's one shot. But then the Gemara says, don't be like a guy. A guy gets up in the morning, I got to hear what the Yankees did. I got to hear what the market is. We get up in the morning, if you don't do that, by the way, it's a great way to improve. In the morning you get up, the first words that you say is Dank to the Meibishter. Thank you, Hashem. So that's in the beginning. A bar mitzvah boy. The very first thing he does when he becomes a bar mitzvah is Mekabel al Malchus Shemayim, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. By the marav of his bar mitzvah, although the Chassam Sofer holds that the first mitzvah of a bar mitzvah boy is Simcha, he argues, but that's what they say, the famous word, that why does Shas start with Me'amasai Korin Shema Ba'arvis? Why do we start Shas with Kriya Shema of Ma'ariv? Because that's the first thing that a bar mitzvah boy does when he becomes a bar mitzvah. So again, all firsts are very important. I vividly remember this when Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky opened up Shas in Madison Square Garden with brachas. And he said there was a shaila if he would finish Shas, if he would start Shas. He said it's such a schus to start Shas because hamaschel b'mitzvah imim lo ligmar. Should be zeicher to finish. Starts. So here you are, the beginning of the week. The beginning of the week is a very big thing. Because the way we start the week, so the Rabbi Nisham says, that's the way you started your week. Whoa, first of all, when you start something the right way, you create an inertia, a mitzvah gereres mitzvah. But also, it's an operations to start the week with learning Torah. It's a very big thing. That's why by the Goyim and by the Yiddish Goyim, there was always such a thing as Saturday night at the movies. Why is that? Well, it was Saturday night at the movies. Because the Yetzer Hara says, the beginning of the week, I'm going to get you. I'm going to get you. Instead, you come. What's beautiful about this program is that it's optional. Optional is extra credit. Optional is a special nachas by the Eibishter. So it's really very precious. And it gives you a leg up on the week. It gives you an extra koyach going into the week. By the way, this Yesoid is in everything. There's a famous medrash, Bereshis Bishvil Chala Shenikar Reishis. Reishis Harisei Seichem. Bishvil Bikurim Shenikar Reishis. Reishis Bikuri Ad Mascha. Bishvil Meiser Shenikar Reishis. Reishis Digoncha. What's pshat? Again, this is the idea that from everything that we do, we take a first. We take a first. We make a dough, the first is for the Rebbeinu Shalom. We have a tree, we wrap a gemi around the first fruit, that's for Bikurim. The first of the crops is for Tumas and Maisrus. We're taking all of our firsts and we're giving it to the Eibishter. It's a big aside. I had a balabas. He had a beautiful minik. At the beginning of the year, he had a business in the summer where he had in a bungalow colony. He had a concession in the bungalow colony, and for 2 months he and his wife worked. They had pizza and they sold challah. Then, mamish, they got back to the city. They gathered all the children, and they took out. He told me he had a big checkbook, bedafka, like an accountant, a big checkbook, and he wrote out checks for all the yeshivas. And he said, "You should know that people leave this when they have money. It's the last thing. We're doing our first thing. We're writing out checks to the yeshiva. Rashis, very big thing, very big chinuch." Gracious. I knew I would be speaking to a Chashav Olam, and I wanted to maybe see if I could give you some ideas. So, starting as man, in general, it's a start of as man. Some ideas to upgrade your learning. Talking to myself also. I also want to upgrade my learning. We always want to do that. So one of the ways to upgrade your learning is to have more kavana in the morning in Birchas HaTorah. Tefillah really makes a difference. You know, I had somebody in my shul who worked for American Express. And American Express has thousands of employees. And his job was to hire people. And he told me that one of the things that he looked for is to see if the recruit, was happy with what they were going to do. Because when you're happy, you work better. In learning, it's the zel bazach. If the learning is geschmack, then it's an underside learning. If you learn mit a geschmack, I can't wait to open that Gemara. Oh, let me see, I was in the middle of that Taisus up. I think I thought in Marsha's Kasha. What? That's what the Marsha says? I had a different. Let me see the Maram. Geschmack. Not everybody has that geschmack. Most people don't. Why? Because they have an internal enemy. It's called the Yetzer Hara. And the Yetzer Hara works on nothing as hard as to get us not to learn. Because Barasi Yetzer Hara, Barasi Torah Tavla. So Torah is the enemy to the Yetzer Hara. So, Shtel Zachvar, the Yetzer Hara says, look, I'll let him do chesed. I'll let him, that's why the Chavetz Chaim says the Malach didn't fight with Avram, he didn't fight with Yitzchak, he fought with Yaakov. Because I can live with Avram's chesed and Yitzchak's avodah, but Yaakov Torah, that's war. So we say in the morning, Va'arevna Hashem Elokeinu es divrei seiroscha b'finu. What does Harevna mean? Arev was zis. Harevna, please Hashem, make it sweet as divrei seiroscha b'finu. Make it zis. So wait a second. Why do we have to pray that the Torah should be zis? It's a beferish pasuk in Tehillim. Is mesukim midvash v'noifes sufim. It's sweeter than honey, and the most sweetest honeycombs. Do you have to pray before dipping the apple in the honey? Hashem, make the honey sweet. Why do we have to pray to make the Torah sweet? The Torah is ziz, it's sweeter than honey. So Chavetz Chaim asked the kasha. Chavetz Chaim gives a mashal. There's a man who's sick, lo yoleinu. He's not eating, he's losing weight. He has no appetite. So he asked the doctor, put some medicine in the food that I should want to eat it. So the doctor said, there's nothing wrong with the food, there's something wrong with you. I have to give you the medicine. Harevna Hashem Elokeinu es divrei sarascha b'feinu. It's our mouths that have the problem. Torah doesn't need a sweetener. The Torah doesn't need sugar. It doesn't need sweet and low. It doesn't need honey. The Torah is sweet. Our mouths, Nebuch, our mouths sometimes, the Yetzer Hara gets us distracted and the Yetzer Hara deadens it, our minds. So we have to ask Hashem. But asking Hashem for that kishmak every morning, Harevna Hashem Elokeinu es divrei sarascha b'finu, u'b'fifi ha'yisamcha b'Yisrael, dam for other people, come espal v'achaveru v'utzach lo yisadar v'hunen etchila, dam for your brothers, dam for your friends. But it's a very big tefillah. It makes a very big difference in the learning. The next thing is to train yourself to learn Torah Lishma. Amar Rab Meir, Kol aloymei Torah Lishma, Zoicha l'dvarim harba. Then in the Mishnah, Pirkei Avos, it goes on, you get this, you get this, you get this, you get this. But there's a condition. It should be Torah Lishma. What does it mean to learn Torah Lishma? So I'm going to tell you not a fancy pshat. Tell you a simple pshat. The Ran in Masechtas Nedarim in the first parak says that the mitzvah of a Talmud Torah is v'dibarta bam. It's a Ran. In the first parak in Nedarim, he says the mitzvah, the rice, of the Liman HaTorah, is v'dibarta bam. So a lot of times before I start my shiurim, I tell my balabatim, let's have in mind, l'kayim mitzvah v'dibarta bam. That's Torah Lishma. There's a lot of other fancy pshatim in Torah Lishma, but it's enough to train you. That's the pshuta the mikra. But once you do that, it's a different. The Rebbeinu Shalom looks at us. You know, in our Birchas HaTorah, we say an interesting thing, that kulanu yodei shemecha v'loimdei seresecha lishma. We should all be Yodei Shemecha, V'lomdei Saresecha Lishma. What exactly does that mean? What does it mean to be Yodei Shemecha? So first I'll tell you a story. Years ago, I used to play tennis up in the mountains with a boy by the name of Jamie. Now, Jamie was the grandson of a Rav. And I was always working on trying to be Mekarvin. But he didn't have a yarmulke. And Azoivait, this is years ago even, Azoivait, he had an earring in one ear. So one day I was talking to him and I said, Jamie, do you know what Adonai is? He's a grandson of a Rav in Europe. He says to me, yeah, I know that word, yeah. It's a type of Jewish soda pop, right? Here you have a Yid, an Einikel of a Rav, who was not a Yodei Shemecha. He didn't even know Hashem's name. So there's a Poshib Shat, Kulanu Yodei Shemecha. But the Mefarshim on Siddur say Kulanu Yodei Shemecha because Kol HaTorah Kulu Shemesh Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, all the Torah's names of Hashem. But the Pashib Shat in Kulanu Yodei Shemecha is it's connected with what we say right afterwards. Kulanu Yodei Shemecha v'loimdei Saresecha Lishma. Because you can only learn Torah Lishma if you know the Eibishter. If you know the Eibishter, you say, I'm learning to be Mekayim the mitzvah of a Talmud Torah. Hashem's command. So that's the connection. Kulanu Yodei Shemecha v'loimdei Saresecha Lishma. So here we have, the first thing I'm giving you a piece of advice is to save a harevna in the morning with a lot of kavanah. That the learning should be sweet. There should be geschmack. Should want to open that Gemara. And remember, you're not asking for the Torah to be sweet. You're asking you should be margish the zizkeit of the Torah. And then to learn Torah Lishma. The next thing is, try to train yourself not to read the Gemara, but to say the words. Ki chayim heim l'motzi'ehem, al tikrei l'motzi'ehem, the Gemara says in Masechtas Eruvin, ela l'motzi'ehem b'feh. Supposed to say the learning. And also when you say the learning, you'll remember it much better. It'll make a very big difference. But as I said in the Gemara, remember, when you learn with your eyes, your mouth doesn't get into the mitzvah of learning. When you learn with your mouth, you're being mekadosh the peh. The peh. Gemara in Masechtas Sanhedrin, Daf Tzadik Aleph says, Adam la'amal peh nivra. A person was created primarily for the amal peh, but when you learn with your eyes, you're not doing with your mouth. It's a whole different thing. So I tell people, Rav Shach says that he lived very long because he always benched from a bencher. But what if you know benching by heart backwards and forwards? Well, you know, you see the words, it helps you have kavanah. But there's something else. If you bench by heart, your eyes aren't getting into the mitzvah. The 3 brachas d'oraisa and the 1 bracha d'rabbanan, your eyes are not doing anything. You want your eyes to get into benching. I want to tell you one more thing. Time, one more thing? Yeah? Let me tell you one more thing. By Har Sinai, what was the backdrop of Har Sinai? I don't know if you ever went to camp. In camp, if they had color war, they had a backdrop. They made what are those called? Banners? What are they called? Banners? I never went to camp, but I know I shouldn't mention twice in one night movies. But Lahavdil Elef Alfei Alofim by the Goyim, they have what's called the set. They have to make a background in a movie. And sometimes they spend hundreds of millions of dollars on a background. If it's a science fiction, Lahavdil, what was the background of Har Sinai? Choshech, darkness, Oshan, smoke, Ophel. Ophel is very, very deep darkness. Arafel, swirling clouds of black. Would you have made that the background of Har Sinai? What is Torah? Ein or ela Torah. I would have made the background of Har Sinai sun, rainbows, gleaming angels. What is this? The background of Har Sinai is Choshech, Oshan, smoke. It almost sounds haunted. What's pshat? For years I looked for this kasha. For years. So I have Yerusha from my father, Olav Shalom, the Shulzinger set of Chumash. In the 6th volume of the Shulzinger Chumash is the Pirush of the Taisus Harash on Chumash. I also have a red volume of Taisus Harash, but I saw it in the Shulzinger Chumash. Taisus Harash asks the kasha. Rishon. Taisus Harash asks, how is it? He doesn't say from a movie, he doesn't say that. But he says, he asks, how could it be that the background of Har Sinai should be black and darkness? It should be art. He gives a murdic answer. He says, it should have been. It should have been. But since we would shortly afterwards sin with the Chayta Egel, we weren't zeicha to the art Torah. So the Lamdonim will right away say, whoa, Hashem only judges by Hashem Usham. What do you mean we were going to? Hashem only looks at now. You're right. Hashem's not going to punish us for what we're going to do later. But now you're talking about something else. You want to get the Or Torah. If when you learn Torah right afterwards you're going to sin, you're not going to be zeicha to the Or Torah. It's a very big nafkamina. Somebody goes and sits by a Seder and then goes home and is not respectful to a mama, goes home and says, Ma, I just came home from learning. I really want to eat something now. Then it's mistama that you won't figure out Tosfos' kasha. The Rebbeinu Shalom's not giving you the Or Torah. And if you do figure out Tosfos' kasha, first of all, maybe you have the wrong pshat. And second of all, it's not with the Geshmak. You want to have the Or Torah, it has to be Torah that's followed up with behaving like a Ben Torah. Behaving like a Ben Torah. Somebody comes out of here after the learning program, it's already, what time is it? 9:09, babies are sleeping, and yells across the thing, yo, hey, yo, what are we doing tonight? And we wake up 6 dozen babies. It's mistama that you're not going to get the Or Torah. That's the way it works. This is a more ridiculous lesson. Torah, because you have to understand, there's thousands of people learning in Lakewood. It's mamish. I just moved to Lakewood. To me, it's like I'm a little bit in the shock. I'm just coming. I ran here. Mamish Olam should appreciate it. I ran here. I was in Skelen for Shabbos. For my wife's brother made a Sheva Brachas. So I was in Skelen for Shabbos. I couldn't daven with Skelen because the Rebbe is still saying his second mimer now. But so I went. So from being in Shabbos in Skelen, they have right across the street, Sons of Israel had a Mariv at 60. So I davened over there. I'm not used to seeing so many Yidden, so many different types of Yidden. It's a Welt of Torah here. It's a Welt of Torah. Yet not everybody learns with the Geschmack, and not everybody learns with success. There are secrets. This is a big side. And that is if you want to have, I once told this to a husband who I had a Pesach. He was telling me, Rabbi Weiss, I remember we were learning Arochin in the Daf Yomi. And he said to me, Rabbi Weiss, it's mamish to me, this is like a burden. So I said to him respectfully, I noticed that you're having a little problems at home. You're not so nice. When you're not nice at home after the daf, you're not going to have atzlach in the daf. It's just, that's the way it is. That's the way it is. That's the Torah is built that way. That's, by the way, that's the Yisoid. Everybody says, oh, Nasa v'nishma. It's so great that we said Nasa before Nishma, right? But Rabbeinu Yoina says Nasa v'nishma is, if you want to succeed at a Nishma is to learn the Torah. That's when you're hearing the Rebbeinu Shalom. You open up the Gemara and you're listening to the Rebbeinu Shalom. Torah Shebal Peh. You want to have Atzlach in the Nishma, you have to be a Nasa. Under Nasa, you're not going to have Atzlach in the Nishma. So, as I said, it's a Moridika privilege to speak to you all. I'm very proud of you. Come to learn at the beginning of the week. It's your voracious, optional activity. Keep it up. In the schus of our learning, we should all be zeicha that Hashem should be mamale kol mishal yiseinu l'tova. Agatavach.